While the First Amendment's guarantees of freedom of speech, religion, press, assembly, and petition are widely celebrated, the Bill of Rights encompasses a range of other crucial protections that safeguard the fundamental rights and liberties of American citizens. In this essay, we will delve into the Fourth, Fifth, Sixth, and Eighth Amendments, examining their provisions on unreasonable searches and seizures, due process and fair trial rights, and protections against excessive bail, cruel and unusual punishment, and the taking of private property without just compensation. The Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution states, "The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue, but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized." This amendment establishes a crucial bulwark against arbitrary government intrusion into the privacy of individuals and their homes, papers, and possessions. The requirement of search warrants. The Fourth Amendment generally requires law enforcement officials to obtain a search warrant based on probable cause before conducting a search or seizure. Probable cause is a reasonable belief, based on specific facts and circumstances, that a crime has been committed or that evidence of a crime will be found in the place to be searched. However, there are exceptions to the warrant requirement, such as exigent circumstances, examples hot pursuit of a fleeing suspect, or when evidence is in plain view during a lawful observation. Unreasonable searches and seizures. Even with a valid warrant, the Fourth Amendment prohibits unreasonable searches and seizures. The Supreme Court has grappled with defining the boundaries of reasonableness, as seen in cases like Mapp versus Ohio, 1961, which applied the exclusionary rule to state prosecutions, and Terry versus Ohio, 1968, which established the stop and frisk doctrine for limited searches based on reasonable suspicion. The exclusionary rule. This rule, established in Weeks v. United States, 1914, and extended to state prosecutions in Mapp v. Ohio, requires that evidence obtained through an unreasonable search or seizure be excluded from trial. While exceptions like the good faith exception and the inevitable discovery doctrine have limited the rule's application, it remains a critical deterrent against Fourth Amendment violations. The Fifth, Sixth, and Eighth Amendments enshrine fundamental rights and protections for individuals accused of crimes, ensuring due process and fair trials, and prohibiting excessive bail and cruel and unusual punishment. The right to due process. The Fifth and 14th Amendments prohibit the government from depriving individuals of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Due process encompasses both procedural requirements and substantive protections against arbitrary government action. Rights of the accused. The Fifth and Sixth Amendments provide critical safeguards for individuals facing criminal charges. Indictment by a grand jury for capital or otherwise infamous crime. Fifth Amendment. Protection against double jeopardy, preventing being tried twice for the same offense. Fifth Amendment. Right to a speedy and public trial. Sixth Amendment. Right to an impartial jury. Sixth Amendment. Right to assistance of counsel. Sixth Amendment. These rights aim to ensure fair trials and protect against abuses of government power. Protections against excessive bail and cruel and unusual punishment. The Eighth Amendment prohibits the imposition of excessive bail, ensuring that bail is not used as a means of punishing individuals before conviction. It also bans cruel and unusual punishments, though the interpretation of what constitutes cruel and unusual has evolved over time. Landmark cases like Furman v. Georgia, 1972, and Gregg v. Georgia, 1976, have shaped the understanding of this clause, particularly in relation to capital punishment. The Fifth Amendment's Takings Clause provides an essential protection for private property rights, stating, "Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. The Takings Clause. This clause establishes the government's power of eminent domain, the ability to take private property for public use, such as building roads, schools, or other public projects. However, it imposes two key requirements. The taking must be for a legitimate public use, and the government must provide just compensation to the property owner. Regulatory takings. In addition to physical takings of property, the Supreme Court has recognized that excessive government regulation can constitute a regulatory taking that requires compensation. Cases like Penn Central Transportation, Cummer v. New York City, 1978, and Lucas v. South Carolina, Coastal Council, 1992, have helped define the boundaries of when a regulation goes too far and becomes a taking. Eminent domain. Controversies and reforms. The Supreme Court's controversial decision in Kelo v. City of New London, 2005, which allowed the use of eminent domain for economic development projects, sparked a nationwide backlash and prompted many states to enact legislative reforms restricting the use of eminent domain for private development. The Bill of Rights protections extend far beyond the First Amendment, encompassing a range of essential safeguards against government overreach, unreasonable searches and seizures, violations of due process, and the taking of private property without just compensation. These guarantees have been shaped and refined through landmark court cases and ongoing debates over the proper balance between individual rights and legitimate government interests. As American society continues to evolve, the Bill of Rights remains a cornerstone of liberty, ensuring that the fundamental freedoms and protections enshrined within it are upheld and adapted to meet the challenges of a changing world. By understanding and appreciating the full scope of these guarantees, citizens can better safeguard their rights and uphold the principles of justice and liberty that have defined the nation's commitment to individual liberty and the rule of law.